Well, hello. It's my real pleasure today for me to be actually able to lead for once, because Stuart, you know what he's like. He's a natural born leader. But what he has learned is by allowing other people to lead occasionally, you build a better team and got a better business. So, Stuart, how long have we known each other now?
Well, neither of us had hair, so
No,
it
I
was
think you had a bit. You had a little bit of hair.
yeah, probably a little bit. Yeah, you're right. So I think it must have been around about 2006, something like that. So well over, well over 18 years, something like that.
I think it's probably 2005, six. Yeah. I mean, we initially met. Well, it was, but we were both interested in property. We were both
Yeah,
in the property networking circuit. We bumped into each other occasionally, and yeah, it was fascinating because when you start hanging around with people that have been a bit more entrepreneurial and willing to put themselves out there a little bit,
yeah.
you meet a different type of person, and you're one of those people that I met. And I know we initially had conversations about property, but then you went off and started doing this other thing that I didn't quite understand. And
Uh-huh.
what attracted you to this other thing, this thing that, utility warehouse, network marketing? Because initially I knew where you were going in property, then all of a sudden it sort of seemed to go off on a tangent.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, my first exposure to anything like this was when I was at college. And I won't go into all the detail, but it turned out I joined a scam. So I joined. Uh, I liked the idea of being entrepreneurial. I was doing a business course at college. My friend said, "Oh, somebody's invited me to this meeting," so I went along to this meeting. We sat there, and it was all about CDs and like DVDs and stuff like that that you could subscribe to. And I didn't realize it was a scam. I paid some money to join, but it was a useful eye opener to the fact that there are some other things out there that you might be
Mm.
interested in. And then 2005, so just before I met you, I was looking for work and I saw an advert in the newspaper. And it was an advert from what I later found out was another network marketing company. It was a product based
Okay.
network marketing company. And I went and spoke to the couple that were advertising and they were doing it full time. It had gone very well for them. And I joined, and my mum became a customer and a couple of other people became a customer. But I didn't have a great experience. So I ended up a year later. I bought thousands of pounds worth of stock. I paid to go off to one of their conferences in America, but I didn't really think I was ready for it. And also, I don't think I bought into the products because the products were great quality, but they were,
Mm.
I felt, really expensive for what they were compared to what you could buy on the high street. But I think it lit a fire
Okay.
because I could see people were building teams of people. They were growing a business. You know, when I went to the conference, there were guys on stage that had been involved. It was the 25-year anniversary, and there were guys that had been involved for 25 years, you know, collecting huge, great, oversized checks on stage and things like that. And I thought, well, there's obviously some money to be made, but this isn't the right vehicle for me. So
Okay.
when I got involved in property, this opportunity with Utility Warehouse came up on a property course. And, you know, the guy that was presenting it, presenting the course was somebody that at the time I had a lot of respect for. They'd been doing very well in property. And he brought this other guy in who seemed very credible. And he presented Utility Warehouse to the room as, look, you're property investors. You want to be in property. If you're not, this would be a really good bolt on. And literally, that was all it seemed to me at the time. It was just going to be a way of earning some extra revenue from the property stuff that I was doing. But it was when my recruiter, so the person who introduced me, when they showed me what it was, that I realized actually this is very similar to that other thing that I did, but there's a lot of differences. And so that was really what sort of got me into it. So it was really just a sort of a bolt on. It wasn't, you know, I didn't feel like I needed it, but obviously the stories developed from there.
Okay. So just for reference, the business model between the two was very similar,
Mm-hmm.
but what was the main difference between the two? Because one was product based, and what was the difference between that and UW?
So UW is services based. So people use, broadband, energy, mobile, that sort of thing. They use it all the time on a direct debit. So whereas, when I was trying to do the product business, I signed up some customers. If I wanted to get a repeat order, I had to go back to the same customer and say, do you still need to lose weight? Do you want any skincare products? All these, it wasn't an automatic process. Whereas with
Yeah.
this, I've signed up customers back in 2007 when I joined that I still get paid on today, because every month they use their services and pay by direct debit. And in fact, they've probably added lots of other services in the meantime. So, we talk about passive income as, network marketing generally can offer you a route to passive income. For me, UW is true passive income, because if I don't work, they still pay me for the stuff that I've done previously and for the stuff that the team have done previously.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Because you must have signed up, customers 17 years ago, and every month they're still turning the lights on and off. They're hopefully still having showers. They're still cooking food. They're still on the internet. They're still making phone calls, sending texts. And every month, you don't have to phone them up and say, can you please get some more electric? Can you please send some more text? They just do it. And the company bills them and we get paid.
That was very different to the product based, and nothing against product based businesses. If that works for you, that's fabulous. Some of them have got some great businesses, great products. But for me, that was the big difference. And also, I suppose the other difference was when I was asking people to buy what I thought were quite expensive products, they were having to put their hand in their pocket to buy those things. And oftentimes they were luxuries that, if times get tough, they would cut back on. Like, I don't need all my expensive skincare products this month. Whereas with UW, I'm offering people a way to save money on things that they consider to be essential. Most people can't live without broadband these days, and we don't, live by candlelight. So, essential things where I'm saying, would you like to get better value? That, to me, makes it a lot easier to offer to people on an ongoing basis.
Absolutely. I know, it's fascinating. I mean, thinking about it, did the penny drop with UW straight away, or was there a process? Was there something like, okay, I've joined and this is, maybe it's something I can do as like you said, as a bolt-on? Was there a transition, a point at which you went, hold on, this is maybe a bit more than I thought? Or was it gradual? Was it instant? And what happened that made it suddenly think, oh, hold on?
I mean, I hit the ground running with UW. I started to sort of build it and it started going quite well. But income-wise, back in 2007, when you and I joined, we didn't have a lot of upfront income like we do today. So, the income wasn't making great shakes. I think for me, actually, the light bulb moment was when the credit crunch happened and property became very interesting and challenging for that period of time. And particularly for me, it became very challenging. And I looked at what was going on with my UW business and realized, actually, I'm doing pretty well with this. Now, it's not yet paying all the bills at that stage. It wasn't sort of, covering everything, but, I'm making progress. The business is growing at a really fast rate. And so I looked at that and thought, do you know what? Again, nothing against people that are doing well in property, because I know you've got some great property investments and people have done there. But I looked at my skill set and where I was getting the best results. And I thought, I'm doing much better in helping people to join a business and showing them how to be successful and growing that and earning a passive income from that than I was in the property world. So I shifted my focus and put more energy into UW because I realized, actually, this is working for me.
That's very good. Very good. I know we often joke about this, but we pretty much were the blind leading the blind in the early days. And, it's fascinating how the lack of knowledge about the intricacies of the business didn't seem to hinder you. Now, Well, why was, what is it about UW where you don't have to be an expert?
Well, I can't say that everybody sees it that way. Some people think they need to learn a lot of detail, but they're generally wrong, because we don't need to know a lot of detail. And it's a blooming good job, like you said, because when I introduced you a few weeks after I joined, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Fortunately, there's a really good support network. And I know that the guy that introduced me also made himself available to you to help. And that, I think, is one of the key factors is, even if you're brand new and you don't know what you're doing, if you introduce people, there's going to be somebody that's going to be available to help. So for me, that was part of it, was having some good support. And that, again, I would say, when you're thinking about whether to join and who to join, you want to make sure you're going to be getting good ongoing support. But actually, one of the things I've realized is the more I learn, the harder it gets to keep it simple. And when you're brand new and you don't know anything, you can keep it simple because you've got no choice. So when people ask you a question, it's like, well, I don't really know about that, but does it sound like a good idea? It's very crude. You just sort of just show it to them and then they say yes or no. When you get to know more knowledge, you almost have to dumb it down a little bit, because you don't want to baffle people with too much detail. And I think, there have been periods where I've sort of made that mistake, and actually people stop joining because they think, oh, I don't want to learn all that detail. So I've learned to go back to real basics and just go, look, this is what we do. Here's a simple presentation. Do you want to do it or not? And that works much better than trying to be clever, because I'm not. And no disrespect, but no, we're both the same.
I'll take that as a compliment. That's all right. It's fascinating. I have gone through similar processes myself. And recently I've just gone back to, this is the video. Do you want to give it a go?
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm getting better results.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating how that cycle happens. And, it's interesting. It's interesting. But, my background was in IT. What was actually, we haven't discussed, what was your background? Mine was in IT. What did you used to do?
So pre-property, most of my background was in finance of some sort. So I spent a lot of time in a motor finance company, either running customer service teams or doing project management, sort of business analyst type stuff. And then did some secured loans and some mortgages and stuff, ran a mortgage brokerage for a little while. But that was sort of immediately pre-property. That's been the core of it, really, property and finance.
But even when you were I think I remember this, when you started UW, you still continued on with your full-time work, because was it Jim Rohn says working full-time on your job or working part-time on your fortune?
Yeah. And so I had the property business, which I was full-time with. And then when the credit crunch hit, I then had a project manager's role, which was my last sort of proper job, as it were.
Okay.
So my last proper job was an IT project manager's job. And I, as you say, I ran this, I was doing 5 days a week in that full-time contract in the office and building this around that sort of full-time commitment. So, making phone calls on the way to work, grabbing a sandwich at lunchtime, and then making a few calls, and then on the way home from work making some more calls. So by the time I'd got home, it's about half an hour commute, something like that. I'd made an hour of calls maybe during the day, maybe 45 minutes in the little nooks and crannies of the day. And then gradually, as I built the business, I dropped it back to 4 days a week with the job, and then 3 days a week, 1 week, 4 days the next. And then it got to a point where I was like, do you know what? Actually, the UW business is paying me the money that I need to cover all my essentials, and I want to put more time into it. And I had a conversation with the boss where I was working and said, look, maybe in about 6 months' time, I'm thinking of sort of ending this contract. And they said, oh, we've got a 5-year project we'd like you to do. So, you can either do that or we can end the contract now. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go now then. So it was about 6 months before I was ready, but I went full time in UW, as it were. And from 2012 onwards, I've not had a proper job. I've been doing this. And by the way, that was 12 years ago, and they still haven't finished that project. So I'm glad I didn't stay on for that.
It's one of those that goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And on. It's fascinating, because one of the things we often discuss, you know, a lot of, I mean, I remember in the early days, all our conversations were about building the business.
Mm-hmm.
Were about how to help people grow the business. And one thing that you instilled in me was personal development,
mm-hmm.
and the idea of becoming a better version of myself in order to be able to help other people. And that was something that you spoke to me a lot about, and I took on board. I mean, it must have been a massive, you know, help to yourself in growing your UW business.
Yeah, I mean, I know you shared your story, and I come from a similar place in that I started to do some personal development stuff just before UW, which was probably one of the reasons why I was open to looking at it, because it does fit. If you've got that sort of mindset where you're wanting to work on yourself, UW's been described as like a personal development company, sort of that masquerades as a utility company, because there's a big culture of that. But I don't think anybody comes into this business, or maybe rare exceptions, but I don't think most people come into this business with everything they need to see themselves through to wherever they want to get to. You know, we all benefit from working on ourselves, and you know, I mean, you can see, like, they're not just for show. You know, these are all sort of books that over the years, you know, I've been introduced to by UW and by the people that are in the business, because that's part of it as well. I think is that people recommend things to you, and I would say it's helped me in the business, but it's massively helped me in life, because you know, if anybody's watching this and they've had any SH1T happen to them in their life, you know, it can be tough, you know, but if you've done the work before it happens, then it's easier and you can get through that stuff. So that's been, it's been business wise, it's been personal. And also what I really love about it is the sort of, you see the ripple effect on other people that are around you. So, you know, my youngest, Freya, she's 12 now, but I joined the business in 2007. She was born a couple of years later. So she's only known me in the UW world. And I remember her first school report when she just started primary school. And I had taught her that practice makes progress, because that's something I'd learned, rather than practice makes perfect, because if you think you're perfect, you stop learning. I taught her practice makes progress as a phrase. And apparently all year long in her first year, she kept stopping the teacher when the teacher said practice makes perfect and say, no, miss, practice makes progress, because if you think you're perfect, you stop learning. And in her school report at the end of the year, the teacher wrote, and yes, Fred, everybody agrees, practice makes progress. So
good
just
for her.
Little things like that, that, you know, you don't realize the impact it's having until you hear something like that.
You know what? I'm exactly the same with Jyoti and Jeevan. I say to them, practice makes progress, and they remind me of it. And and I love the fact that they are willing, and we can, you know, influence them at an early age, and we can help them. We can help them understand. And a lot of people talk about, yeah, the money you can make from UW, but I'm often more, you know, it's the amount of knowledge that we gain that we can pass on to the next generation, the knowledge that we didn't have.
Yeah.
It's simply for circumstances, nothing to do with our parents doing anything wrong, just the circumstances that they were brought up in. We've got a different set of knowledge that we can pass on, you know, and it's fascinating. I don't know what your parents' life, my dad worked, you know, he worked in a factory, in a foundry. My mum worked 2 part-time jobs. I'm not sure what the situation with your parents were, but there's a lot of people that I still see who work a lot of hours, right? And they don't have the time to do the things they want to do. Or we recently went on a holiday and it was an all-inclusive thing. And so many people put so much emphasis on that 2 weeks that they've booked out of their life to enjoy. So out of 52 weeks, they've got 2 weeks that they enjoy. And that's the thing about UW I love. The fact that if you grow the business and you like yourself, you've got the residual income coming in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't live for the 2 weeks out of the 52.
I think that that's something that you forget sometimes as well, how valuable that is. And it takes somebody like, for instance, my girlfriend Sally, she works in a regular 9 to 5 job. And a couple of times when we first got together, I was like, oh, should we go and do X, Y, and Z? She's like, yeah, I haven't got any holiday left. I can't do that particular thing. And I'd forgotten about the fact that you have to book holiday when you've got a 9 to 5 job. And like you say, deciding to go away. I mean, I seem to remember that was a last minute decision that you went away recently. Those sort of things where it's just like, I can choose to do that without having to ask a boss. And things like the school events. I've been to so many of the school events where I'm the only dad there, or there might be 1 or 2 that have managed to persuade the boss that they can get a bit of time off. And just being able to have the freedom to say, oh, it's the school nativity, and Freya's going to be dressed up as a little angel, and just to be able to go there and see those things, I think that freedom is really priceless. And like you say, money's great, and they can keep paying me the money, but it's what the money allows you to do, because it's coming in every month, whether you're working or not.
It's that little look. You would have seen this so many times as your girls were growing up, but it's that little look they have on their face when they see their parent in the room. And that for me is priceless. I see Jyoti and Jeevan, and Jeevan's a bit younger, but the moment he sees either myself or Sylvia in the room, and I'm sure you've seen it with yours, that look of recognition and their smile, they're beaming because the person, somebody that they care about and cares about them, is in the room with them. And it's just massive for them. And I always take, when it doesn't, I will go and do it if I can, and I will be there as often as I can. But it's just for that little look of recognition that is huge for me. It's priceless. It is absolutely priceless.
Absolutely.
We spoke earlier on about, 2000, was it 8, 9, the credit crunch happened? The credit crunch. There was a massive economic downturn, and we were both involved in UW. You were leading the charge. There was so much happening in that probably about 5-year period. And then we sort of had this relatively calm period, and then 2020 happened, right? And there was a huge, massive amount of uncertainty with the lockdown, with what was going to happen. But you had something in the background, whether you signed another customer or partner again, that was different, that a lot of people didn't have access to, and how did that make you feel, knowing that you had the UW business and all this stuff was going on out there, and a conscious decision you made about the media as well?
Yeah, I mean, obviously at that time, you're referring back to 2020 when lockdowns and all those sort of things started happening. There was a lot of fear and uncertainty in the world, and there were people that were worried about how am I going to pay my bills, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to work, and I don't know if my company's going to be there, and all these different worries. And having the UW business just meant that none of those worries existed in our world, because they pay on the 21st of every month, they pay us our passive income for all the customers that we've introduced and all the customers that the team have introduced. Every time they pay their bills, we get paid a little bit of each of those bills. And that was so reassuring to know that that income was coming in regardless. Didn't have to worry about furlough. In fact, I spoke on another call recently with some other leaders, and one of the things we were saying was, actually, furlough gave people a taste of what it was like to have passive income, because they got 80% of their normal income, but they didn't have to go out to work for it. They were able to enjoy their hobbies and pursuits that were possible at that time. They were able to be at home and enjoy the sort of luxury of working from home if they were working, if they were needing to. But it basically was like having passive income. So that was part of it. But the media thing that you mentioned, I found myself getting wrapped up in the news for a period of time during that, early on when it was all very uncertain. I wasn't worried about the finances, but the world was very uncertain. And I had to make a conscious decision several weeks in to ration the amount of news that was going in here, because it's like anything, it's like a computer, garbage in, garbage out, and if all you're doing is consuming negativity and uncertainty, then that's how you feel, and it manifests itself in the way you behave. So I made a conscious choice to, yes, I'm going to check the news because it's an important thing going on, but I'm going to do that quickly, and then I'm going to come off of that. And I've rationed my time on social media, and I increased the amount of reading of those books and absorbing personal development. And noticed very quickly I started to go back in the right direction in terms of the mindset. And that was a huge shift.
As soon as you mentioned it to me, I had an aha moment. I think you're right. And I just clicked the button, stop watching it. And that was, that's again, because, we speak on a regular basis. You've done the personal development. I've been helped. And the moment you said it to me, it was like, he's right. Stop watching it. Don't need to. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating how people, I remember we went to, the company has the annual event, right? And you invited me along. I had no idea what was going on. You said, come along to Telford. I'm like, what? Not Barbados or Marrakesh. Come to Telford. Okay, Stuart, I'll go to Telford. And you walked up on stage, and I'm like, what's he going on stage for? And it's because you saw the business model, and part of the business model is we bring in customers. Customers pay their bills, and that's where the income is generated. But you've only got so many hours in a day, right? So, we all talk about, you were working a full-time job, and the maximum you could probably do in UW in a week was maybe 3, 4, 5 hours, maybe, around a full-time job. How are you going to increase the amount of hours that are going in your business without you cloning yourself and making lots of Stuart Ritchies everywhere? What was it about this business model that you thought, okay, what can I do that makes me more productive?
Yeah. It's ironic you talk about that cloning thing, because it's not actually cloning yourself, but we are trying to make a sort of a duplicatable process and share that with other people so that they can follow it. So go back to the beginning. First of all, my recruiter, on the day I joined, the light bulb moment I had about, oh, this is the same as a business I've been involved with before where I didn't do so well, was he showed me that you can gather customers and you'll earn an income for doing that, and your income will grow in a straight line. The more customers you get, the more your income will grow. And then he said to me, if you also build a team and you encourage them to do the same, that will multiply and multiply, and your income will grow on a curve, and it will go up and up and up, and it will get steeper because it grows, as they call it, exponentially. And he just showed me that on a scrap of paper. And he said, which one of those do you like the look of? And I said, the one that goes vertical. And he said, great, you need to build a team. Now, I don't know how many people he'd said that to, but I took him at his word. I went out and spoke to you and a number of other people. So I joined end of July 2007. In August 2007, I did the training at the beginning of the month. And then I went out and I just spoke to everybody that I was in contact with. Some people I rang specifically, other people I spoke to them when I was meeting them or when I spoke to them on the phone. And I managed to recruit 9 new partners into the business in that first month. And I learned in the beginning of the following month that made me the top recruiter for the company in that August 2007. So I was like, wow. So he told me to do that. I went on the training. They showed me how to do it. I went and crudely, really poorly, did exactly what they showed me, because I, as you said, blind leading the blind. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just went out there with enthusiasm on fire, and I got some results. And then I was recognized for achieving those results. And that was really a virtuous circle, because it said to me, okay, so you can do this team building thing, even if you're not very good at it. You can actually bring people on board. So right from the start, I realized that if I wanted my income to grow without me and without me being needed, I needed to build a team. And so that, as you say, has been a big focus of mine right from the start and still is to this day. I bring customers in because we all have to bring customers in. And if we don't, nobody pays the bills. So that's the really important part. But my primary thing is, where can I speak to somebody who has got that entrepreneurial mindset and is wanting to find a ready-made system that they can plug into and have support and all that sort of stuff, so that we can help them to grow a business, because that's where the long-term benefits are huge.
It's I mean, it's a fascinating business, and the team building side of it is, the word fascinating is probably the best word to describe it. Look, I mean, it's been really good chatting to you again. We talk a lot on a regular basis. There'll be people who are listening in on this and they're going, oh, actually, you know what, maybe I do need to find out more. Maybe there's something that's sparked an interest. What's the best step for them to take now?
So I'm quite infamous for the phrase, pick up the damn phone. So I would say, if you've got the number for whoever invited you to watch this, whether it was you or me or somebody else, pick up the damn phone, make a phone call and say, I've just watched that interview. I really want to find out more about how I can be involved in something like this, and just have that conversation. We will show you, as you said, a really simple presentation. It takes a few minutes. It just explains what we do. And then if you say yes, then we'll help you to get started. And if you say it's not for you, then we'll keep in touch, because one day it probably will be. And, you and I can, you're a good testament to that. I think I asked you 5 times before you said yes, maybe over a shorter space of time. But
I'm so glad you did.
Oh,
so glad you did. It's a fascinating thing, this business, UW, people, and I can't thank you enough for all the help over the years and the conversations we've had, the personal development, and the person that we both become as a result of this business. And I'm looking forward to, UW recently hit over 1 million customers, and the next 1 million is coming, and it's amazing. There's so much to happen yet. We joined 17-ish years ago, and this business is barely scratching the surface yet, and there's going to be a huge amount of growth, huge potential, and huge incomes for people who wish to work to be able to get that. So I want to thank you for your time today, Stuart, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Joshua. Really